there was a church, and this is very interesting, that did something remarkable for its parishioners, something that we've actually been wanting them to do. Savvy, you know, looking at this story with fresh eyes, I think it's pretty interesting and quite profound, to be honest with you.
Well, this is something I feel that, and I'll let you play it. This is something I feel that churches used to do, at least back in like my parents' day when my parents were growing up. Like they used to be more involved in community service and mutual aid, like just helping people in the communities. And there have been a number of people that have actually been taken in off the streets by churches as well. I actually knew a former roommate of mine when she first came to New York. She actually was taken in by the nuns in New York to help get her off the street. So I think that this goes back to that, like what churches are. It's not just supposed to be about religion. It's also supposed to be about helping the community and helping the people. And I think this is important that you get back to that.
Yeah, definitely. Let's take a look at what's going on in this church. And just to let you guys know, this is what church, the church name. The church is Trinity Moravian Church in North Carolina. So this says the members of Trinity Moravian Church in North Carolina purchased nearly $3.3 million of local residents' medical debt for just $15,048. Then they held a debt jubilee ceremony and burned up the debt, canceling it all. So this is going to be wild. So take a look.
We do hope you don't sell iron.
On Sunday morning, more than 3,000 families in Davidson, Davie, and Yadkin counties received a letter notifying them their medical debts had been forgiven completely.
We do hope you don't sell iron.
Imagine being able to do that with your debt.
Yeah, this is something we talked about. I still have to publish that. This is something that we did at Camp Data as well.
Mm-hmm. And so this is another part of the piece. It says this amazing effort was accomplished by a partnership between the Debt Jubilee Project and RIP Medical Debt. We've been following the work of RIP Medical Debt as they help folks across the country cancel medical debt for just pennies on the dollar. And actually, interestingly enough, oh my goodness, last week tonight with John Oliver, he actually talked about medical debt as well. And so he actually purchased debt from a lot of people for, I think, like $15,000 from on his show, and he literally canceled debt live on his show. So
really,
yeah,
okay, yeah, I haven't seen that. That's really nice of him.
I honestly, I would love to play it on here, but it's HBO, so HBO would give us a copyright claim, so I can't do it. But it's an interesting show when he talks about the medical debt. So, and he talks about a lot of different interesting things, but he keeps circling around the problem, being capitalism without actually saying it. And I'm like, dude, just say it's capitalism's problem. But what do you do? But let's go into this.
Medical debt is the number one reason why people go into bankruptcy in the United States.
A growing crisis of medical debt in America.
More than 100 million people are saddled with healthcare debt in the U.S.
That's larger than the economy of Greece.
Almost anyone can end up in medical debt. You can have insurance and you can end up in medical debt. You can get sick and be brought to a hospital that's outside of your network and you can end up in medical debt.
Being a leader in government is a tremendous opportunity to address, historic wrongs.
We can prevent someone from getting evicted because they had medical debt, from choosing between paying their medical bills or putting food on the table.
And it's incumbent upon those of us in leadership positions to use this money wisely, to invest it wisely. And I'm very proud of the fact that we're leaders in the elimination of medical debt. My name is Tony Preckwinkle. I'm president of the Cook County Board of Commissioners, which means I'm county executive for Cook County. We decided early on this is one of the ways we were going to use our American Rescue Plan Act resources. There is this group, RIP Medical Debt, which is our partner in this work.
We are a charitable nonprofit institution that mission is to end medical debt. We were founded by two former debt buyers who knew the debt industry and knew that you could buy debt for pennies on the dollar, which is why $1 relieves over $100 of medical debt. And we've gotten rid of over $7 billion of debt for over 4 million people to date.
Okay, so the question is, who's eligible?
We look for people that are 400% of poverty or below, or if the debt is 5% or more of the person's income.
We're going to spend $12 million. That's our initial investment.
$12 million over 3 years that they're using to get rid of roughly $1 billion of medical debt. That is a leverage that most social programs can't provide.
Wow. And they're doing this by a nonprofit. Imagine what the federal government can do.
Well, I was just going to say, like, one of the things that we need to take into consideration are the tithes. And Shale actually points this out. She said, hey, Sabby and JB, these days, they won't even help the tithes payers. They don't give a F about the non-tithes payers. This is shocking. And so for people who are not aware, like for people who are regular members, quote unquote, of the church, usually when they come in on Sunday, they will give like a tithe, right? Mm-hmm. So that's when they pass the plate around and people will put their money in. And typically, if you're a member, I think you're supposed to give like 10% of your income or something like that. Okay, so it's supposed to be that money basically goes to keep the church running, to help the family who. The church family, like the pastor and his wife and his kids, that kind of thing. But at the same time, like, and JB, you know this, there are churches, there are mega churches where you have pastors like TD Jakes that are making like millions of dollars. And so you also have to ask, where does the rest of that money go? I mean, we're talking about a given Sunday. If you have a congregation that's at least 500 people, you're making a lot of money in reference to tithe. So there's more that they could be doing with that money if some of these pastors, not all of them, but some of these pastors are not trying to live these lavish lifestyles.
Yeah, I mean, they have this, what they call the prosperity doctrine, which is complete and utter BS, in my opinion. You're talking about the prosperity doctrine when you're literally trying to find a person who follow a person who didn't have a house, a vehicle, a home, didn't even have anywhere to actually lay his head, and you're following that person, and yet you're just like, oh, we're supposed to be prosperous. It's like, yeah, that person tried to dismantle the system that was ruled by the Roman government. What are you doing? You know? And so, you know, it just goes to show that, you know, I think that is also a really good point, is the tithing. That's another part that people really need to take a closer look at. All right, let's continue.
That is why so many local governments are knocking on our door.
We've gotten inquiries from around the country: New Orleans, Louisiana, Los Angeles County, Columbus, Ohio, Toledo, Ohio.
Cook County was the first municipality that used American Rescue Plan dollars. We followed that model to allocate $800,000, and then the Lucas County commissioners are matching $800,000 for a total of $1.6 million.
We can potentially get up to $240 million of medical debt off the backs of local Toledoans with a $1.6 million investment.
The beauty of this program is that no one needs to apply and no one really needs to know about it. One day, someone's going to get a letter in the mail saying their debt's been canceled.
Their debt's been wiped out, and we are careful to be sure that their credit reports are cleaned up as well.
And because their debt is in our hands, they are free and clear of that debt for the rest of their lives. The sense of joy and amazement and relief that we get from people after we send these letters is incredible.
There are no words.
Things like, I now feel like I can go and get the care that I need that I've been avoiding because I was embarrassed. This debt is out of my way so I can handle my credit card bills now. At the same time, we appreciate that we shouldn't exist as an institution. Medical debt is a systemic problem. It is no one's individual fault.
It's a really uniquely American problem that we have. And we just let a lot of people go, without food, without medical care because of our broken healthcare system.
That's why.
Here's the one thing I'll push back on. The system isn't broken. It's designed this way. Saying that it's broken means that it was good before, or that it was really, it was good for people beforehand. We've always had medical debt. We've always had a system where it puts profit over your health. So to say that it's broken, and that's my slight little pushback, it's not even really that big of a pushback, but it's like, it's not broken. It was designed this way. And I think that's, that we need to change it from the ground up. Want anything else, Saps?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, again, I'm glad that this church in North Carolina is doing this. I wish more churches would do this because, again, this is what churches used to do. They used to take in the unhoused. They used to help them. They used to help people with mutual aid. They used to do food drives. And somewhere along the way, it became this industry for these mega churches with the pastors that become millionaires and are writing books and have these luxury homes or private jets. And it got away from the original mission. So I think I applaud this church here in North Carolina. This needs to spread all across this country because these churches should be helping out people in need. Some of these churches don't even help out the members in the church. I've heard stories from people where some of the members have been laid off from work and they've been unhoused and they were still giving tithes to the church because they believed that was the right thing to do. But when it came time to help that family that was going through that situation, the church was just like, we just got to pray about it.
You know what gets on my nerves? When they're like, oh, we just need to pray about it. I'm like, look, I was raised in the church, right? And they were like, you have to pray about it, you have to have faith. Wasn't it wasn't it a Bible scripture that says just like the body without the spirit is dead, faith without works is dead? So therefore, if you have to have faith and you have to pray about it, that means you have to act on it. So if you're not going to act on it and help people to actually, make these things come to fruition, then you're basically just saying, oh, we wish, you well without actually helping somebody. And that's actually unchristian like. Because the Christian thing to do is to actually put your words in faith into action. And so this is the crazy part. They'll talk about, oh, we'll pray for you. And without knowing that, without actually pushing forth, helping people in a material way. It's just like saying, oh, and even Jesus talked about this. Go away, be well fed and keep warm without actually giving them food, giving them clothing and a place to stay. Then what are you doing? That's literally in the Bible. So the thing is that they're not even following their own scriptures. That's the crazy part. And so it's just like, come on now. So you guys know that this is what you're supposed to be doing, but you don't want to do it because you're a tool of capitalism. And that's the thing. A lot of these, mega pastors of these mega churches, these televangelists, these Creflo Dollars, these TD Jakes, these Joel Osteens, these oh my gosh, Joyce Myers, they are just a bunch of leeches. That's all they are. They're parasites, and they're just going it through the religious route versus the corporate route.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, some of these pastors, I know some of you who are not religious and you may not be aware, some of these pastors are making a lot of money. And then you have, like I said, you have people who go to the church that are barely getting by, that are still giving tithes every Sunday. And the pastor's walking in with, a freaking BMW car, has $1 million house, writing all these books, making TV appearances. And some of the members of the congregation can't even afford to pay their rent.
Yeah.
So church has become profitable when it was not intended to be that way.
That's the whole, that's the whole goal. Remember when Joel Osteen refused to actually let people into his church during the, what was it? It It wasn't Katrina, was it?
I thought it was the ice storm. Wasn't it the storm? The storm.
But either way, it was during a major storm, and people actually needed a place to go. And his mega church, which could hold thousands of people, he refused to open his doors to let people in there.
And he only did so after he was criticized publicly for not allowing them to have a place to come to. But that's what churches are really supposed to do. They're supposed to help the needy, help those in need, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah. All right. So let's continue. Let's finish this up.
Why at RIP Medical Debt, we are fundamentally trying to shift the conversation around bigger solutions to the problem, because we don't solve the issue of medical debt. We clean up a mess at the end.
I'm just really grateful that a lot of people are going to see the relief that they deserve. No one deserves to be in medical debt. And I'm glad that our local government can do something small for citizens to help them find relief. Washington, D.C. doesn't have a plan to eliminate medical debt, but Toledo, Ohio does.
Did you guys catch that? Mm-hmm. That part right there at the end.
Yep.
Incredibly important. Like, she called it out. Like, our politicians are they're not helping the people, you know? And if we're looking at it the way that it was supposed to be, again, like back in the day, people were not relying on the politicians to help them. And this is what I think is important for people to remember. There wasn't always a president of the United States. So how did people in those communities, how did they get by? They helped each other. And we got away from that. So this is where these organizations like the churches, some of these so-called nonprofits, they're actually supposed to be helping people in the community. And like I said, somewhere along the way, someone found a way to make religion profitable. And some of these pastors became very rich, and they didn't want to, give up that lifestyle and give up that money. Also, I think churches don't pay taxes either. So there's that too. They get tax breaks. So, something is wrong there. If you have, and I'm sorry, I feel very passionate about this because I grew up in the church. Like, if you have the pastor living in $1 million house, but you have people who are coming into the church that are part of the congregation that are struggling just to pay their rent, something is wrong with that system.
Yeah.
Something's wrong with that. People need to call that out.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the actual term minister is supposed to be another phrase of servant. So minister means ministering to people, meaning serving. And, they're not doing that. And so if you literally have people who are suffering that are parishioners in your church, and you're not actually doing your utmost to help them, well, then you're just, you're no different than the people who you claim to be the devil. I'm sorry, but I'm going to say it. Because the thing is that if you're gonna talk about greed and selfishness, then you guys need to start with your own house, because that's exactly where it's at. And the funny thing is that you guys, these would be the same people that would have sold Jesus out if they could. That's the crazy part. And the thing is like, these people who talk about, oh, we gotta have faith in God. I'm like, you talk about faith in God, but at the same time, you're not using the things that you have at your disposal in order to be a vessel of God. So, who are you?
That's right. That's a big one right there. And I think too that people have to come to understand, especially like in the South, like we used to call it the Bible Belt. In the South, and particularly the Southeast, it's, there's churches like everywhere. Like you can literally drive down the street and pass like 3 or 4 like churches, like not even far away from each other. So the thing is, it's really on the members of the church to bring these things up and to push them to do the right thing. I went to a church with a friend of mine one time. This was years ago. And it was a Mother's Day, the Mother's Day Sunday or something like that. And they had a dinner for the mothers, like after the service. JB, why they charge the mothers tickets to go to the Mother's Day brunch? It's things like that. If they're members of the church, why are you charging them? When JB walked away, I was like, she's like, yeah, they had to have tickets. They had to buy tickets. I was like, why do they need to buy tickets to go to a brunch at the church that they already pay tithes to? And nobody wanted to no one wanted to ask this question. And members of the church did so, whether begrudgingly or not, but they did so. And I just thought to myself, like, really? No one sees a problem with this? The pastor's got like a BMW parked outside in the parking lot, and they're going to charge you money to attend a Mother's Day brunch, and you're a member of the church and you pay tithes every Sunday? Get out of here. Come on, man. I told you one day we need to have a deep discussion about this, JB.
Oh, we can go deep, because the thing is that, and they better not even try to go down the whole, original Hebrew scriptures or the Old Testament route, saying, oh, well, this person had this. Like, no, back in the Mosaic law, which was the law of Moses, they actually, put, forth the obligation to people who had their own land and had their own crops to a provision called gleaning, which was basically a means that when you actually, harvested your fruits and things like that, you left whatever fell to the ground, and whatever that was left, you didn't go back over. So you went over once, and whatever you missed, you missed. And that was for all the poor people in the area to come in on their own and take what's left of what was left on the trees, on the bushes, and all that. Guess what? That made a provision for them to still continuously get food, but at the same time, you also be able to collect your crops. And so guess what? That was a provision that was actually set out in the Bible. And then on top of it, it talked about treating your neighbors, the people who are immigrants among you, as your own. So they can talk about it all they want, but look, I preached door to door for 20 years, right? And the thing is that that's not what you do. You do not sit here and sit on top of an ivory tower and look down on people like that. In fact, you're supposed to put the person who is lowest among you up high. That's how it's supposed to be. But that's a whole other thing.
Or shame people because they can't afford to pay to go to these conventions, the church conventions. That's another thing that happens sometime. Deneen said, I was a choir director at a fairly large church. When we did a Women's History Month concert, every member of the choir had to buy a ticket to sit in the choir stand. True story. There you go. And somebody needs to ask one day, where is all this money going? If we're giving you money every Sunday, what are you doing with that money? Let me see your books. Who's doing the counting here? I want to see these books.